you always have to reel back into like the leader's intent and what they really want out of leading someone. So I think sometimes we see leaders that are in it for like the power or the prestige or the wrong reasons. Really, leadership is about like influence and caring about people and helping them to get to their true potential. So
Welcome to Barbell Business. I'm Mike Bledsoe here with Doug Larson and Marcus Gursey, and we have our guest today is Taylor Drescher. She is a first lieutenant in the Marine Corps, been a CrossFit competitor at regionals many times, went to the games on a team, and you also competed on the Grid League, or on one of the Grid League teams. Which team were you with?
LA Reign.
LA Reign. Yeah, so not only, and we're going to be talking about leadership today. So obviously, if you're an officer in the Marine Corps, there's a lot of leadership things that you have to learn and really embody. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also being in the strength and conditioning world as a woman is very can be challenging. So, but it sounds like this is kind of the path you've been going your whole life.
Yeah, I'm in my element right now, the only girl here, so this is normal.
Yeah.
Usually the only one in the room when I'm sitting at a table full of Marines, and it's just something I've gotten used to. I kind of enjoy it. It's always challenging, but yeah.
Yeah, and you coach a lot of women around leadership, and but if you're a man, you're still going to get something out of this.
Definitely.
I'm pretty sure of it.
Definitely.
Most leadership skills are evergreen skills. It's just people leading people. They're not necessarily male skills and female skills. There will be some differences, of course, but if you are a man listening to this, I'd imagine there's still a lot you can get out of it. So don't tune out just because you're a dude.
That's right.
Cool. So go ahead, dude.
What are some common things that people are stepping into leadership positions that they don't realize they need to be doing, or they're missing out on?
That's a good question. So I think leadership, when we go way back to when you apply to become a Marine officer and you go to officer candidate school and the basic school, really everything is about how you're going to lead your Marines and what your character is. In the Marine Corps and the military in general, when we talk about leadership, it's a lot about your character and just taking care of the people that are going to follow you. So I think that when we look at different leadership styles, you always have to reel back into like the leader's intent and what they really want out of leading someone. So I think sometimes we see leaders that are in it for like the power or the prestige or the wrong reasons. Really, leadership is about like influence and caring about people and helping them to get to their true potential. So in the Marine Corps, or just like in life in general, I've had really good leaders and really bad leaders, and I've learned from all of them. You can take away the good and the bad and kind of put things in your toolbox that you want to take with you. But I think some of the biggest things overall are just like as a leader, you just have to be a good person. And if you're not a good person and you're not authentic, people will see through that, and people will see eventually like the true you and what your morals are and what decisions you make when nobody's looking. Those things are going to come out over time. So if you're not a good person and you're not taking care of other people, you're kind of missing the big picture.
Yeah. I was reading something just yesterday. It was talking about a lot of times people who are trying to be in a leadership position are looking a lot at what other people are doing, and it's like copying that personality or an attitude or something like that, and it doesn't ever seem to pan out. It's when people are authentic, like you were saying, that when a leader can just be themselves with their people, that's when they can be the most effective.
Totally. I remember being really confused when I joined the Marine Corps because I was like, what kind of women are going to be at officer candidate school? Like, I don't know what their personalities are going to be like. And I just thought, like, these are going to be a bunch of, like, lesbians and people that are just, I don't know. Like, I had this stereotype going in that they were going to be a bunch of weirdos. And they were a bunch of really amazing women. But I think for women specifically, like, I had a hard time in the beginning figuring out who I was and how I was going to fit into that. But for me, CrossFit was such a huge part of my life, and I was so true to that. And people make fun of that, but whatever. It was like, that's who I am, and it's not fake. So I had that backbone of knowing that, but then figuring out, like, okay, how am I going to, because as a Marine, you see drill instructors that are like yelling at people and being super crazy, and it's just like, do I need to do that? And I'm like, no, that's not me. I would never yell at anyone or do something crazy. So just figuring out how to be comfortable in your own skin in that kind of environment where you are being looked at all the time as a leader, or even compared to your peers, or just even wearing the uniform of being a Marine. Like, you're holding there's a high reputation for that uniform, that you've got to represent it so well. So just figuring out who you are is so key to being able to tap into your leadership potential, you know.
Can you share with us your journey up to this point? So you joined the Marine Corps, and then how did you get to a point where you felt like helping other women with leadership?
Well, that could go way back. My grandpa was in the Marine Corps for 33 years. My dad was in for roughly 25. And growing up, I was always very in love with the military lifestyle, specifically the Marine Corps. And I thought, I'll just marry a Marine. That's what I thought, you know? And I had never seen a female Marine until I was 19 years old. And that was the year I started CrossFit. And I just asked her a bunch of questions, and it was just mind-blowing to me. I was like, wait, females can be in the Marine Corps? And so I was like, Dad, let's go to lunch. I want to tell you something. So we sit down, and he's like, you're not pregnant, are you? And I'm like, no, sir, I'm not. And he goes, you don't want to be a Marine, do you? And I was like it could be the second worst thing he could guess.
Hey, yo.
Sumo's eating
cords. This adorable dog is biting the cords and running away with them. All right, you get a pass because you're cute.
Now I have a fur baby.
Tell me that.
Not a real baby, but Sumo the Frenchie.
You get a pass because you're cute too, Marcus.
So yeah, he guessed, second guess, you don't want to be a Marine. And I'm like, yeah, I do. So he thought it would fade away. He's like, she's just motivated by this woman Marine she met, and it'll go away. I ended up having to take the ASVAB 3 times. You have to get like a 75 to be an officer, and the first time I got a 74, and then I had to retake it. I did worse, and then I had to wait 6 months and retake it. So I was like, the third time I took it, I was like, if I don't pass this, I'm enlisting in the Marine Corps. I'm going to be a Marine. So, I've done CrossFit since 2009, and just when I started, I couldn't do 1 pull-up. I was pretty strong, but I was pretty slow, pretty fat, pretty not fat, but just I could move weight, but not necessarily my body. And CrossFit really helped me with that. So going to OCS, I shaved a lot of time off my run time because we ran a ton, but I was really good at the pull-ups and the rope climbs and the hiking with weight and all of that. And then the basic school was the same thing. When I got to the basic school, that was the second year I'd qualified individually for regionals, and they allowed me to take leave for a day, go back to Cincinnati, compete at regionals, and then come back. And then I remember coming back from regionals and going back to Quantico, Virginia, got in super late that Sunday night, and then Monday morning we were running a 5-mile endurance course through the mud with weight. And I just remember being I got done, and my platoon commander came up and he's like, how was everything? And I was like, sir, this morning we were running through the woods, and I was like, this is awesome. I get paid to do this. It was so awesome. So the whole journey has been really cool, just incorporating both worlds of the strength and conditioning and the military. And I've just found this passion of leadership and people and strength and conditioning, and how those two come together. And especially as a woman being in a male dominant environment, if I can come to the table and bring something to the team, maybe I could deadlift more than you, or maybe I could do more pull-ups than you. It just kind of we connect that way, and it brings something cool to the table. And I've really enjoyed it. So I want to help other women have that same thing and find out who they are, find their inner confidence, find their authenticity, develop some leadership skills, develop some mental toughness, develop some physical strength, so that they can actually bring that to the table. And a lot of these women just have the potential, I think, just in general, because of society, because of what society tells us we should be. We're just really confused. If I'm really strong and I'm really muscular and vascular, and should I not look that way? Now I love my body, but growing up it was rough. And so just, I think across the board, I've done some surveys with women, and across the board, it's just mental toughness and self-confidence that they lack in.
So how much did being physically fit and very strong help leading men in the military? Because I'd imagine my projection is that a lot of times people don't want women like on their team, so to speak, or in their squad, or I've never in the military, but because they presume that women are slower and weaker, etc. But you're obviously very fit and you're very strong especially for a female, but you're probably much stronger than many men in the military too. Did being very fit and very strong really help with leading men? Did you get less resistance because you are as fit as you are?
For me, it was everything. My strength was my strength, and I just played it as much as I could. And obviously standardized test taking and some of the knowledge stuff is not my strength, so I had to really rely on other guys to help me, like, hey, can you help me study for these tests? That was my weakness, but my strength was my strength, and I just played to it. Like, volunteered to be the physical training representative for our platoon, coming up with PT for our Marines, and I'd come up with crazy things that would just have everybody just dying, and they'd be like, oh, Drescher's gonna kill us, and oh, Drescher's carrying a machine gun like in front of the whole platoon, and I'd carry more weight on purpose just to, not to prove a point, but because I could, and I loved it. Like, I lived for that, so why not? And then the guys would be complaining or falling out, and I'd be like, you want me to carry your pack for you? Like, just kind of say something to them, but then they do well, So I just played to my strength, and just whenever there's a chance to, like, ground fight a guy, or I didn't always win, but, put it out there, or, like, race them on an O course or E course, or anytime there was an opportunity, I just seized it. And then especially when I got to my Marines here at my unit, I just took them out and PT'd them, like, first thing, and they respect you right away when they see that. And it builds unit cohesion and teamwork to, I could lead from the front, but I always had a place in my heart for, like, the people who were falling behind. And it was like, okay, the whole team is turning around to pick up this person, and we're going to finish together kind of mentality. So it was never, like, putting the people down who weren't physically there. It was showing them that they could be there if they worked hard enough.
I remember, I believe Jocko said this one time. Jocko Willink, he wrote Extreme Ownership, the book.
Right.
A very, very good book. He said on a talk that a lot of people who are outside the military, they think that because someone's in the military, that if they have, the squad leader, command leader, whoever it is, again, all these terms probably aren't correct, of course, but whoever's in charge, whoever is their, the person that they report to, they assume because someone is in the military, and because when you're in the military you have to follow orders, that automatically if someone tells you what to do and they're in charge, that you will automatically go do it because you're in the military and you have to do it. But that is not necessarily the case. You still have to be a good leader. People still have to trust you. People still have to think that you know what the hell you're doing, or they're not automatically going to follow orders. Is that accurate?
I would agree. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Mike always follows orders.
Yeah.
Yeah, and ideally...
That was problematic for me when I was in the Navy.
I'm sure.
People were like, go do this. I'm like,
Yeah.
How about you go fuck yourself?
Wait, why? No, that's totally true. And I think that for me, so my top 3 priorities are accountability, integrity, and attitude. And integrity is huge just because any relationship is built on trust, whether it's professional or personal. And if there's no trust, then there's no relationship, right? So in the military, you will respect the rank, but you don't always necessarily respect the person. And that's hard as a leader when your job is to influence. If you tell someone to do something and they don't trust you or they don't respect you as a person, they're not going to be really receptive to the order, to whatever the task is that you're asking them to do. So you will have a really hard time if you're, I think that just falls back to you're after power, you're after prestige. You don't care about this person. I would never, like, most times I learned as a leader, even with a Marine who's lower ranking, it was like a conversation. And hey, what do you think about this decision? I got to that point. I wasn't always at that point where it's like, hey, this is the decision, guys, let's do this. And they're like, ma'am, that is so wrong. Like, why would you make us do that? And I'm like, because I'm the lieutenant, And you learn. Yeah, you learn. I'm
the mom.
As a leader, you learn, and you learn from your senior enlisted guys who've been there longer. And I think if you can learn to listen to them and they have the experience, listen to their experience to help you make decisions. It just is not, like, as a leader, it's never a one-man show. You never should be doing anything on your own, making decisions on your own. At the end of the day, you hold the responsibility because of the rank, but learning to take that advice from the Marines or the people that you work with is a key, I think, to being a good leader.
Yeah, I think a lot of people earn a lot of trust when they are involving their people in the process of decision making. It's like, oh, we need to like, I'm going to direct this, and I'm going to get all of your input so that people feel heard. And then one of the things you said, trust. One of the things that I've learned about trust over the last couple of years, which has been interesting, is thinking about breaking somebody's trust. That's commonly used in our language. Oh, that person broke my trust, as if that person knew that they were breaking the trust when they did this thing, and when that's usually not the case. And so one of the things the way I look at trust now is trust is granted or withdrawn. So the person who's, I grant Doug trust or I withdraw it. And so there's nothing he can do to actually break it. It has everything to do with me. So like operating from that perspective with trust, and when I'm working with people, and if somebody doesn't trust me, if I start looking at as why is it they withdrew their trust versus what did I do to break their trust? Because I could get in my head all day about how I can build trust, but until I communicate with that person and ask them, what is it that's going to cause you to grant me more trust or withdraw it? And so I think that when you were saying that trust thing, I was like, oh yeah, that's something that I don't think I've talked much about myself, and I found extremely powerful as a leader.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've never really looked at it that way, but that's cool to say. I was speaking somewhere the other day, and for me, with my Marines, I sit them down and I say, you have 100% of my trust until you give me a reason to not trust you. And I think I had a guy ask a question. He's like, I am the complete opposite. Like, I don't trust anyone until they prove their trust to me. And I think it's just different for each individual. And maybe it's because, like, I'm wearing a Marine Corps uniform and they are too. So I trust that they should know their job. I trust that they've proven certain standards to be sitting where they're sitting, so I trust them. And then when they break it, it's like it's out the window. I had someone tell me an analogy, a captain, he said, trust is like if you have a full deck of cards and you're standing on the Grand Canyon and you throw the deck of cards into the Grand Canyon. Over time, you can pick them up one by one, but you'll never have the full deck back in your hand.
Yeah.
And that's how I explain it to my Marines every time. It's like you've got the deck of cards in your hand now, and now like we'll move from here.
Yeah, that's interesting too, from that perspective of the leader trusting their subordinates. He's right there. The leader trusting the subordinates, they can feel that. People can feel if you're leading them and you don't trust them, then that's going to just cause a huge breakdown. And I think that's why it's super important that if you as a leader don't trust somebody on your team, you have to clear it up. And again, going back to, we're good.
So sorry.
Oh no!
It's all good.
That happens about once a show.
We spilled some coffee for the audio.
It's like,
listeners
I don't
out
know
there.
what to do with my hands. There's these cords everywhere.
Do with these things.
Yeah, but as a leader, recognizing that maybe somebody didn't break my trust, somebody on the team also, and if they feel like I don't trust them, then that whole relationship's just going to go to shit, and might as well not even be working together in the future, really. But if I'm looking at and taking responsibility for the trust that I'm granting somebody, what is it about them? And I can choose my way into trusting them again, but it's a lot easier if that is alongside of that, you're communicating. Okay, I trusted you with this thing. It didn't happen, and now I withdrew it, and now I want to grant it again. But
Right.
how can we make this happen?
Totally.
Yeah.
Communication is definitely the key to success there. And then I think a lack of trust leads to micromanagement, which is never effective on a team. And we always say trust but verify, and that verification is just communication, so.
I feel if someone doesn't trust me, I automatically don't trust them back.
Right.
It just comes up for me. And so given that if you give someone trust right off the bat, that's automatically going to help strengthen your relationship with that person. And if you have a good relationship with that person, then they're going to be more likely to follow you as a leader because they want to, not because they're forced to.
Right.
And if they're forced to, they'll still get some stuff done, but they'll do like the bare minimum. They'll do what you tell them, and then they'll stop. If they trust you and they want to follow you, they'll go out of the way to do like things that are above and beyond that aren't necessarily the base expectation, but they'll do the best job they possibly can. Do you agree with that?
Totally. Yeah, I've seen Marines just do remarkable things. I remember giving a Marine a task. I was like, hey, these flyers, they need to be hung all over our area, 41 area, and then I just need you to like give me a map of where they are so that when someone comes to inspect us, we can show them on the map like where they are. And this corporal just knocked it out of the court, like went down to security and like got a layout of everything in this like remarkable map, and like just came back and then sat down and like briefed me, and I was just like, wow, this was such a small task, but you just blew it out of the water. Like, and that's when I knew like this, you know, and we had a great relationship. Like he loved to PT. He was super, he was super young. So he was at a very influential stage, and he was grasping all the right things. And those are the moments that I'll remember forever, like being a leader, just being blown away with the Marine coming back with like, you know, blowing this task out of the water and just showing that even how small the task was, he gave a shit.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
Let's take a break real quick. When we come back, I want to talk about when someone comes to work with you and you're coaching them on leadership, what that process looks like.
Before I started with my Barbell business coach, I was all over the place. Didn't really have a plan for the gym. I didn't know what I was going to be doing 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, a year out. I was just so busy with the ins and outs and the coaching and the programming and the marketing and planning events and doing all of this stuff that I didn't really know where we were going as a gym. And as a result, the gym kind of just went in circles. I had, you know, between 85 and 105 members just bouncing back and forth and back and forth. You know, people were coming in, but people were going out, kind of missing something. Since starting with the coaching program, when we first started, it really made me dive into what I wanted out of the gym, not just today or tomorrow, but for the future. They had us answer a lot of tough questions that really made you think about what you wanted and where you were going. But once we got the answers to these tough questions, it was very easy to make this plan for this month, this quarter, this year, to help us get where we wanted to go, to implement the programs, to hire the right people, to plan the right events. And really, I would say it's totally changed the landscape of my business over the last year and a few months.
Pop, 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 pop. Dun, 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 dun.
All right, and we're back with Taylor. So if somebody comes to you and wants to learn about leadership, how's that conversation start?
So I do a couple different things. I offer women's leadership seminars. I've done 2 so far. I'm an ambassador for 511, so they've been really supportive in that. And we've done it at their location in Irvine and then one of their locations in Oceanside. So I offer leadership seminars. I've had roughly 20 women at each one. The last one was awesome because I only knew 2 of the participants. Everybody else I'd never met before, which was amazing. Most of these women reach out to me via social media, and I put my email address out there for anyone. So I get a lot of women that just email me. Some of them just have specific questions and they want to chat, and I'll set up, if I can't answer it on email, I'll set up like a 20-minute FaceTime with them. And then if they want to take it further than that, we can talk about, you know, okay, what are their specific goals? If it's just strength programming, I offer strength programming, which is all conjugate based, because I was out in Cincinnati for a year with Shane and Laura Phelps Sweat, helped them open conjugate. So I do that. I offer strength programming for them. And then if they're looking for a little bit more, I offer life coaching. I call it life coaching just because I guess that's what you call it. I actually wasn't planning on doing that until somebody specifically emailed me like, hey, Taylor, I'm just going out on a whim here, but would you be my life coach? And I called my fiance and I'm like, somebody just asked me to be their life coach. Like, I don't know if I can do that. And he's like, babe, like, you're doing that already. You're just not charging people for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I've taken on 5 women as life coaching clients that I work with once a week or once every other week, and just really, you know, give them assignments, journal prompts, discussions, focus on meditation, their main roles and priorities in life, and just emphasizing working on their focusing on their strengths and improving their weaknesses to prepare them to be a better leader. 1 woman's a teacher, 3 are potential Marines, and then I cannot think of who my last one is. Oh, she's a Marine. She's a Marine.
Didn't you say you're working, because you're working with women and not just Marine specific,
right,
but you're helping them any sort of, you know, whether it's first responder, law enforcement, anything you said that is kind of like a team environment that's predominantly male, you're really helping prepare people for that or strengthen them once they're within it.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Definitely not just geared towards the Marine Corps. I think it just they are flocked to me because they see that I'm a Marine. But I am working with, since October, I started working with some women for free and then just have kept my OGs. But one woman is amazing. She's a Army Black Hawk medevac pilot, and she's phenomenal.
She's probably seen some shit.
Yeah, yeah, she really has. And she's been through some really crazy life stories, and it's awesome because they all inspire me in turn, and just working with them like fulfills me so much. So that's one of them's a deputy sheriff down in Florida, and she wants to be the first female canine handler at her unit in Florida, so we're working towards that. We've got about 6 months until her test, and I'm really positive that she's gonna accomplish that goal. She's doing great things. And then one of them is an NCIS special agent, staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. And I've had some firefighters that I've worked with, and just women of all ages. Some are in college, some are 40, some have been to OCS and they want to go back and they failed, and some of them are, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are not even military or law enforcement either, and I'm like, sure, you're a teacher, let's work.
So you were very fortunate in the military to be very strong and very fit, and that was your strength, and that helped you in many ways. A lot of women can't say that for themselves, and so they might not even know what their strengths are. I think that's a really common thing. Like we deal with people in business coaching settings all the time, and they don't know what they're good at and what they're bad at necessarily. I think they might have an idea what they're bad at because they feel like that list is long, but it's almost even in some ways socially taboo to say you're even good at stuff in some cases. So how do you help people figure out what their strengths are and where they should put the majority of their effort?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think if you ask someone, what are your strengths? Like list 3 strengths and list 3 weaknesses. You'll have people who answer those questions very differently. Some people can talk about their strengths all day, and some people can talk about their weaknesses and can't name one strength. So it's different in every person. But across the board, women are lacking mental toughness, self-confidence, and it's, again, finding out their strengths. Maybe they're incredibly smart, and we need that. We need really smart people who can make educated and informed decisions, and that are really good at decision making, or maybe they're really good at management, like putting together teams and organizing and all that. So just honing in for these women, like what those strengths are, and being in touch with themselves and not in touch with what other people expect from them is a huge lesson in itself. Figuring out their own leadership style. We talked about that, just not trying to emulate anybody else's. But so we do have that conversation right off the bat. Like, what are your strengths, your weaknesses, your biggest fears, your concerns, your stressors? Tell me about your life. Tell me about your upbringing. What's the biggest obstacle you've ever overcame? Mm-hmm. And in that, and in getting to know them, over time, I can kind of pick out strengths and weaknesses that I see and help them as their coach. Like, well, maybe one of your weaknesses is that you always have to be moving and you always have to be busy, and we need to simplify your life. If this is what you say you really want, but this is what you're doing, your thoughts, your choices and your actions are not in a line to get to where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting, but I'd say it's just common across the board that mental toughness and confidence in women is lacking. And I've even experienced that too. I think it's not easy being the only woman in the room. You just get better at it because you just get to know yourself more, and then you're not afraid to raise your hand and say, I have an idea. Whereas before, when I was new to it, I would be kind of scared to raise my hand and say I have an idea because I'm like, everyone's going to think I'm stupid just because I'm a girl. That's real. Like, I've really felt that way. And maybe sometimes they still do, but I'm okay with it now. I'm okay with, like, that's how I really feel. That's how I've really gotten to this point to make this decision. And I'm okay raising my hand and sitting at the table with guys who intimidate me or girls who intimidate me. And so I think just passing that on to other women and just letting them know, like, hey, I'm real too. I've been through a lot of the uncomfortable things, and we're all human. Mm-hmm. I think as a leader, like, sometimes they put up like this wall of like, I'm this perfect person and this always, 100%. But you can connect a lot more with people when there's certain things you don't share, but they're like, I think if you're more open and more real with people, then they can connect to you better. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, sometimes it's really helpful to know that someone that you look up to, that you think is so strong and so powerful and so well put together, they have their shit together, and they've been in the same situation that you were in, and they felt the exact same way, and you go, oh wow, like I'm not the only one, I'm not alone. Oh, okay,
Right.
now even if you still feel like that, you feel better about it because you know that it's not just you.
Right. It's normal. It's
Mhm.
human.
Mhm.
We're all crazy.
That's true. A lack of confidence is common amongst women and men as well. I mean, I remember going through different phases of my life and it seems like every time I get into something new, you get into a new environment. You know, when I was first in the military, there was a lack of confidence, and then over time it was like, oh, I got it. And then went to college, and then got it all over again. You know, getting in front of a class and talking. I was nervous again, even though I would talk in front of I would brief, captains and stuff. And then I get to college, I'm nervous there. And then I get into CrossFit, and I get into podcasting, and then again, there's that lack of confidence, and then it builds over time. Do you have any ways of building confidence more quickly rather than just saying, fuck it, suck it up, and get in there?
Yeah, being humble, because I think that's kind of where I am right now. I'm like getting ready to get out of the military on Friday, and moving on to the next chapter, and I'm back down to the bottom of the totem pole, and it's just realizing that that's where I am and being okay with it and reaching out for help from other people who have mastered it, because thinking that I can do it all on my own, or thinking that I've got it all figured out, or I was a Marine so I can rely on that, it's not the case at all. That's what I did in the past. It's part of me, and I'll carry some of the traits with me, but I can't rely on the fact that I was a Marine forever. So I've really lately just been trying to humble myself in this process of moving on out of the military and realizing, like, being a business owner and public speaking and all of these environments are new to me, and they're different, and I'm not the best at it just because I was a Marine and I was a lieutenant and I stood in front of people. I just have to realize, like, it's going to take some time. I'm going to go through the growing pains again, but I think in order to build that confidence, my advice would be to humble yourself, and then to reach out to people that are willing to help you and that are already experts in what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it's a really great point, because a lot of people, and I've caught myself doing the same thing, lacking that humility. You go into, you want to look a certain way. You don't want to look dumb, so you don't ask questions. And having that humility is going into a situation and just going, I have no idea. Could you please tell me what's going on? Could you inform me? Because I don't know. And I think that a lot of times people are afraid to ask questions just because they don't want to admit to the people around them that they don't know the answer. And I think it takes a lot of humility, and I think that a great leader, when they don't know, will just ask clarifying questions and be okay with people knowing. I was like, oh, they just didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, like, who's Kevin Spacey?
That's a really good question. It's impossible to know, really.
Taylor has no idea who Kevin Spacey is, and we almost didn't let her on the show.
To be fair, he's kind of new on the scene.
He's working his
He's only
way
been
up.
around for 20 or 30 or more years.
Is he in Dances with Wolves? Who's in Dances with Wolves? Who's that?
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner. Yeah.
Hey, you're halfway there.
That was like one of my
They're both
favorite
movie actors.
movies
Kevin
growing up.
Spacey in
Both named Kevin. You
Waterworld.
got it.
Kevin, okay, I don't know who Kevin Spacey is. I'm gonna Google it. As
Oh, man. Kevin Spacey watches this show, so he's going to be
gonna
very
be
offended.
super
My
Oh,
fiance
yeah.
is gonna hear this podcast and be so embarrassed. He's gonna be like, God, I tried to teach you these things.
What's your fiance's name so he can really be embarrassed?
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Okay, so when you're working with someone, when you're working with like one of the 5 people you mentioned earlier, but what does that process look like? How often are you talking to them? Do you give them like homework assignments, so to speak? Like how do you interact with your clients?
It's different for each person, and I'm still learning as I go what each person needs and how to charge for that and how to make it a business, and because that's really how I'm going to be bringing in my income now. I mean, we're going to Matt's. Matt will be bringing in the primary income, and that's also really hard for me to do that. But it's like, hey, we're a team, and I want to be a wife, and I want to be home and be together. So I'm going to, figuring that out. But I work, some of them I talk to weekly. Some of them I talk to every other week. A lot of them I just review their results on Fitbot. Mm-hmm. They put videos and results in that way. Some of them are local, so I can see them and go to their competitions and support them and touch base with them in person. I'm really looking forward to being out in DC because that's where the basic school is, and that's where all the second lieutenants are, and Quantico, OCS. So my fiance is at a ceremonial unit. He's at 8th and I, and it's they do parades every Tuesday night and every Friday night, and they also do the funerals at Arlington Cemetery. So a lot of the lieutenants will come out to the parades on the weekend, and some of the girls that I've talked to over time will be going to OCS. And so like when they have a weekend off, I can drive out there and like pick them up and go get coffee and just spend time with them and be like, hey, what are your questions? What are your fears? How are things going? And just kind of be there for them and provide that insight that I wish I had when I was in their shoes. And then aside from that, it's just building the network and building the community of those women and putting those women in touch with each other so that they have a support system and they can turn to each other, not just turn to me when they have those questions. And a lot of my peers that went through officer candidate school with me that are captains now or that are still in the Marine Corps, they're really supportive of this whole movement, and they're like, what can I do? How can I help? So if I have women that have certain questions that I can't answer, I'm like, hey, I have a friend that can, and she'd love to be there for you. So just really building that community and making those resources available for women, because when I was 19, I just found CrossFit and that was it. And there were strong women in CrossFit, but most of my mentorship came from males, which is okay too. I have a lot of male mentors. But I just kind of wish that I had a female Marine tell me that when you get into the Marine Corps, you're going to be viewed as one of three things: a slut, bitch, or a dyke. And I was like, okay, cool, great. Glad I signed up. Guess I'm a bitch.
Can I be all three? Is that allowed?
Is that asking too much?
So
above and beyond.
I want to change that mindset for women and be like, no, you're not going to be one of those three things. You're going to be you, and you're going to be really good at being you, and you're just going to lead Marines, and you're just going to enjoy it, enjoy the journey, enjoy the challenges, enjoy the failures. Like, that's really it. So I want them to know that's okay.
Rewind a little bit back. You were talking about coaching as a business, which is interesting, and that I one of the things I notice is people who, if someone's coaching inside of a gym, then it's really clear about when they're coaching, when they're not. And what I've noticed with people who do remote coaching or life coaching is every coach has their own style, and it sounds like that's being developed. I wonder what people are needing and all that kind of stuff. And then one of the things I've noticed that happens with a lot of coaches is they give like their phone number to the clients, and then they're texting them at like 3 o'clock in the morning saying, oh, should I be eating this chocolate cake? Like, fuck no. But like there's like setting these boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries is just what I was going to get to. That
figuring out as a coach where you're going to draw those boundaries, because some coaches are very like day by day. You can message me, and that's cool. And to me, it's every coach has to figure out what it is that they really, how they want to offer it, and then have their clients work within that for what they really need. Yeah,
that's a really valid point, because as a life coach or a coach, what you're giving away is your time and your thoughts and your discussion. And so you do have to create those boundaries, and that's why I only work with, as for life coaching, 5 at a time. And then for monthly coaching, for strength training, everything, all the communications like Fitbot or email. And that's why I'm like, hey, I send you my schedule for when I'm available. You can schedule during these times to chat. But if you don't set those boundaries from the beginning, it can definitely, I think in the beginning, I kind of wore myself a little thin with the clients I was working with for free, because I just wanted to like offer so much and keep them and build clientele. And at the same time, I was still an active duty Marine, like still training for CrossFit, all of this stuff. And I was like, this is too much. I love it, but you're giving a lot of your time. So there definitely needs to be a line of, this is what I offer. Here's the clear expectations. Expectations are huge. And back to even just leadership, I think, we always do an initial counseling. We sit down with our Marines and say, these are my expectations for you, and this is what you can expect from me. Day one, black and white. I expect you to be on time. Accountability, integrity, attitude. Those are what's important to me. Here's my pet peeves. and get to know him or her. Like, where are you from? Tell me about yourself. And I usually do that first so I can get to know them. So it's not just like, hey, these are my expectations. Listen to me. But, you know, get to know them.
Life could just be so simple.
You know, we have to be willing as leaders to
Meeting a
listen to them before they listen to us. But then putting the expectations out on the table, because if you don't know your own expectations and what you expect from those who work with you, then how can you expect them to know? And then how can you hold them accountable when you're like, why did you do this? Like, you know, and they're like, I don't know. Like, you have to have that talk about expectations. So defining those is part of the leadership process of figuring out who you are and what's important to you as a leader.
Yeah, I feel like an enormous amount of conflict between two people is a violation of expectations. And a lot of times one person had an assumption, they had an expectation that just didn't meet the assumption or expectation of the other person. No, neither party is in every case likely to be to have bad intent. They both probably intended a good outcome, and they're both trying to do something, you know, generally good. Most people don't think that they are inherently bad people. They're trying to do good the majority of the time. But if you don't especially write down expectations, then that makes it that much more likely, especially when you're dealing with a large group of people. If you're leading 100 people, like if you run a company, or you're leading a bunch of people in the military or what have you, if you don't have those expectations written down, then they're that much more likely to be violated. That's right.
Boom.
Word.
That's right. Word.
Heard that?
Okay, so what are your workshops like? What's the kind of the process that you go through with a workshop? Do you have a set curriculum, so to speak?
I have a draft. I like to shoot from the hip, if you will. But essentially, everybody comes in, you know, give them name tapes because I'm horrible with names, and then just let everybody kind of introduce themselves. We do a lot of interactive stuff, so I like to get them up. Like, I give them a questionnaire, they fill it out, we talk about some things, they get up and talk about it to everyone. I kind of start with my story, a more detailed story of my life, some of the obstacles that I've been through, so that I can be more relatable to them. A lot of these women come in because they've seen something on social media, and I'm like, how many of you are here because you saw something on Instagram? And like, all of them raise their hand. And I'm like, cool, that's great. You guys just see the highlight reels of my life. So let me tell you about the dirty stuff and the bad things and the stuff I've overcame growing up as a child and all of that. So that makes it a lot more relatable, and they can be like, okay, she's a real person. And, you know, so that's how I kind of started out. And then throughout the day, we just go over, I've got, like you said, like a draft of some key points that I want to hit on, you know, just like defining a command philosophy, or what is your vision? Where do you see yourself in 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? A lot of these women haven't thought about that or even put it down on paper, which, like, to you guys, that's something like you just do, right?
It's much more common practice in business than the rest of the world, so to speak.
Yeah, and just even for some of them, it's just getting in front of people and saying what their goals are, and saying what they want to do and what they want to accomplish, and making it more of a reality, and showing them like, hey, you guys really can get to that place. You just need to maybe eliminate some people in your life that are bad and negative and taking away from you, and are you investing in yourself, and are you with the right people? Just some of these questions and things that I've learned along the way. And kind of what triggered a lot of this was I read the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and it really just inspired me to take action, because I was like, yeah, I've seen a lot of this. Yeah, this makes sense. And I was like, cool, what am I doing about it? Nothing? Okay, let's do something. And so I started the seminar, and it's been really positive as far as helping the women, and some of them have become clients. And then for me, it's just always super fulfilling just knowing that I could make a difference in someone's life or help them in any way. So
I think changing the people that you're around on a daily basis is one of the most powerful things you can do to change, grow, and evolve as a person. Adding people is one skill, and then, like you said before, eliminating people is its own separate skill, and that becomes especially difficult if it's a family member or someone who's a part of like your core friend group, and like you can't just like not show up to events anymore because you lose all your friends, or they're your boss, or they're a part of like the group you work with. Like, how do you go about like eliminating someone, as you said, from your life, or at least like minimizing time with them?
Yeah, I think I have dealt with that a lot in the Marine Corps. Just a lot of my peers haven't always agreed with my leadership style or my extreme passion for CrossFit. And even just for me, you know, finding a balance of being a Marine and being a CrossFit athlete. And sometimes that meant making time for myself to go train or to whatever it may be, and just some people didn't agree with that, and that was okay. Like, because I just had to learn to be okay with that, to be so much more confident in where I was going, worrying about like the end state or the journey to get there, and not worrying about what the people around me thought. Because like in 5 years from now, their opinions aren't really going to matter to me. What's going to matter is what I accomplished, where I went, the friends that I made, the relationships that I built. And so if they're not a positive relationship, it's still hard. Sometimes I still struggle with it, but I just have to learn to kind of stiff arm that mentality and let it roll off my back. And the way that I deal with that really is just talking to people, specifically like my fiance or my coach, Don Fletcher from Mentality WOD, just talking to people who support me and believe in me. And when I am not believing in myself, say like, hey, this person said this about me and it still really hurt my feelings, because I have feelings, and I don't know how to deal with it. And they're like, hey, like, you're going to have haters. It's going to happen along the way. You just got to realize what you're doing is part of a bigger picture and not let it stop you. Because everybody in life is going to go through that, and you have to be strong and you have to push through it and focus on the positive things. So definitely, I still personally struggle with that sometimes, but it gets a little easier just because you get more people in your corner and you learn how to communicate with them and how to push past that. But it still happens.
Mm-hmm. There's some people that you would prefer not to get rid of, you know, like if it's your mom or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it might be exceptionally difficult to change somebody. It is exceptionally difficult to change somebody. But have you experienced that at all, where someone's like, well, it's like, God, this person's a really negative influence in my life, but I don't want to like bail on my mom. Like, what do I do? I was hoping you have all the answers.
I pray.
Please change.
Yeah, serenity prayer is amazing. No, really, I do really pray. I am a Christian, and I do rely on God for a lot of strength when I lack the human strength, and just to be aware of what I can control and how I react and how I respond and how much I put myself in that situation. Just, God, give me the guidance, give me the patience, give me the strength to control my own actions, because I have some family members that I have to, practice that with, and it's definitely a challenge. But I think living away from home makes it a little easier too. Like, I live in California, they live in Tennessee.
That's the trick. Just move away.
Just move away.
Got shit to do, Mom. Sorry.
Yeah.
Don't tell all my secrets.
Learned it from Mike.
I've noticed when changing who you're hanging around with, I've had people ask me the same thing, which is like, how do you deal with that? How do you select people in and out? And one of the things that I've learned over time is, if you share frequently enough your vision of your future for yourself, like you were talking about your goals, and if you paint that picture for the people around you, people tend to opt in and opt out. And if they're not down with what it is that you're wanting to accomplish, they'll just stop hanging out with you as much. And then I think also, if I'm super clear on where I'm going, and then I'm making that extremely clear to everyone around me, then if someone asks me to do something that's outside of that vision, it's easier for me to say no. And I know a lot of people, I haven't suffered from this as much as I've maybe watched my wife suffer from this, but the people-pleasing personality, which is, I think, more common with women than it is with men. But the whole, like, oh, I'm afraid someone won't like me if I don't say yes to this request. And I think it's really easy to give into that if you don't have that personal vision of, I know what I want to accomplish. And if that's not super clear, then it is easy to give in and end up doing shit you didn't really want to do or really isn't serving you.
Totally. Saying no is a skill that I've recently become much better at for that exact reason. If it's not feeding into my goal, my end state, or my plan, or feeding who I want to be as a person, then you just say no. And sometimes it's hard, but you just do it. And that's a great point on what you hit on. Like, if you're just staying your path too, I think like the right people will just come into your life. They just kind of, like you said, like flock in, and you're like, hey, how did we even become friends? I don't know. I just saw what you were doing and I thought it was awesome, and I wanted to meet you. Or, those peers who maybe don't agree with what I'm doing and moving forward, they will eventually just fade out of the picture. So that's a really good point that you hit on.
Yeah, and creating space is important. If you do start just saying no to people, you know, like I've gone through periods of time where it's like I get invited to this event or this party, and I know that being around those people aren't going to help me get where I want to go. By saying no to that, oh, the train.
All right, here, guys. I got to go.
But one thing I've noticed in the past is by saying no to a group of people, and they go, come hang out on Friday night. I'm like, no. It's like an hour later I get a message from somebody from a different group where to me, for what I was wanting to accomplish, was an upgrade and like how I was going to socialize. And so I find it very interesting that if you can say no, if you start saying no, all these really cool opportunities just start presenting themselves.
Totally.
Also, if the person you're speaking with, say it is someone close to you like your mom, and she does know what your goals and aspirations are for the next 2 to 3, 5 years of your life, hearing no becomes a lot easier to accept because they're like, oh, okay, now I understand why they're saying no. If someone doesn't know why you're saying no to them, you're going to go hang out on Friday? No. And they go, oh, okay. Well, they automatically jump to the possibly totally incorrect conclusion that you're saying no to them just because you don't like them or you just don't want to hang out with them. They'll jump to like some negative self-image conclusion like, oh my God, like that person just doesn't think I'm cool anymore. They don't want to hang out with me. Now I feel bad.
Yeah,
but if
totally.
they understand what's going on, like you don't want to go out on Friday night because you got to wake up on Saturday because you're going to fucking work all day because you're trying to build your company or whatever. They go, oh, okay, he's just busy. And now they don't take it personally.
Yeah.
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 Totally
Exactly.
agree.
Yeah.
Word.
Right.
Exactly.
Great
Dope.
point.
Good point. For sure.
So how often do you host the workshops?
So I've done 2, and there's no rhyme or reason to the time. It's just been, I'm like, hey, I'm leaving in April, so we did one on the 1st of April, and the one before that the first one was in December. So I actually have a leadership seminar scheduled for June 3rd in Ohio at CrossFit Conjugate, which will be awesome because it feels like just yesterday I left CrossFit Conjugate, and I remember sitting there crying and hugging Laura and hugging Shane and be like, I'm going to the Marine Corps. I'll be back in 4 years. And now I'm coming back. So
Full circle.
cool.
yeah, coming full circle will be really cool to just take everything that I've learned from the Marine Corps and just like give back to them because Shane and Laura definitely have a huge part in who I am as a person and a leader. But so there's no rhyme or reason to when I schedule them or any,
How long are the events? Is it a single day event? Is it for the weekend?
Yeah, as of now, it's just a single day event, from like 08 to 1400-ish with a lunch break and a workout. And 511 usually hooks up with the participants with a tank top and some stickers and discount and stuff. But in the future, I would love to create like a seminar or like a retreat, like a summit. I've been talking roughly, like just a little bit with Brian Shantosh about putting together. Do you guys know Brian Shantosh? He was a Navy Cross recipient and a Marine as well, and he does a lot of the CrossFit stuff. He's with Nicole Carroll. She works with the CrossFit media. And hey, Brian, if you're out there, we're putting together a summit, and you didn't know it.
Surprise!
No, he's like an amazing leader, somebody I look up to as a mentor, and he's someone who's just like black and white, but super passionate about what he does. And he was, if you guys look on social media on like Henshaw's stuff, they just did some stuff with like Dan Bailey, Sarah Sigmund's daughter, and they had him like out in Tennessee in Cookeville, like running him through some crazy stuff. And there's a guy yelling like, why did you leave your teammate? Why is he back here? And it's Brian like running the whole thing. So he's kind of already doing a little bit. And I would love to evolve this into like a summit where there's like experts at what they do come in and like have a sports psychologist or have somebody come in and do like a strength and conditioning piece and like a decision making piece and a team building piece and have guys and girls there too. And so it's where it is now, and I see it going somewhere bigger, and I would love to make it into something like that.
Sounds super cool.
Excellent. If people want to find more about you, where do they go?
So my Instagram is TaylorDresch3 or ValkyriePerformance.com. I also have an Instagram for Valkyrie Performance, and all of that can be found there. Or I guess Facebook, Tay Dresch or Taylor Drescher. But yeah, Taylor Dresch3 is my Instagram, and I have my link for my website on my Instagram, and I have my email address on my website. So anybody who wants to reach out, just send me an email, and we'll set something up. I'll answer your stuff via email, or we could do a FaceTime or meet in person, however that works out.
Excellent.
Yeah, and if you're a male listening to this, which a large chunk of our audience definitely is, tag one of your female friends that you think could benefit from this show. Some of that might want some leadership training or attend one of these summits. who is a female friend of yours. That way they know about it, because maybe 20% of our audience, I would say, is females at this point. So guys, the 80%, tag your female friends and let them know about this.
They don't like us.
Yeah, or guys.
They do too. They
guys
love us.
can reach out to me as well, because I would love if there's like some guys out there who just struggling with connecting with maybe a female coworker, of like how to motivate her, how to inspire her, or you just can't get through to her. Maybe there's more going on, and maybe you could use some tools as a male to like be more effective with women. So I could help with that too.
Most guys can.
Every guy listening was like, I think that's me.
Okay, now I'm reaching out.
I watch my previous self. I watch other guys. I'm like, no, that's not how you do it.
You got it all figured out now, though.
That's great.
Perfect.
You got it all figured out.
100% dialed in.
The never-ending cycle of I didn't understand last year, but now I got it. Now I got it.
This year's going to be different.
Now I got it. I got it all figured out now.
This is my year.
I was so stupid a year ago.
Awesome,
All
Taylor. Well,
figured
thanks so
out.
much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks,
for
Taylor.
joining
Yeah,
us.
thank you guys.